What is up, and welcome to the Lakers Theory Podcast. I am Shane Jackson. Joined with me, as always, is Austin Case, coming to you on Sunday, March 6th, the day after LeBron went nuclear against the Golden State Warriors in a win, 124 to 116 victory over the Warriors, where LeBron scored 56 points, which matched the highest point total by an individual player all season. Trae Young is who we matched with. And then Brown obviously scored. Was it Brown or Tatum scored 54 tonight for today?
Oh,
I
I
think it
have
was
no
Tatum.
idea.
But anyways, some 50-point performances going on here in the last couple of days. And LeBron obviously kind of fitting there. One of the older players to do it, I believe the stat was he joins a group that includes Kobe Bryant and Jamal Crawford, an odd combination as some of the, I think, older players to score this many points in an individual game. I didn't watch it live. I had obligations and plans, but I watched it replay this morning, and holy crap, it was just as exciting and lived up to the hype. A lot of fun and worthy of a podcast. So that's why we're here. We are here after kind of a couple week layoff. Austin, what'd you think about last night's win over the Warriors?
So we kind of just chatted about this before we started. I started watching. It went downhill quick, so I had to stop. Like it was me. I tuned into the game and went bad. So um, I stopped watching essentially mid second quarter to a handful of minutes in the fourth, and what I saw the first time was bad.
Mm-hmm.
But once I tuned in for the finale, I guess they looked okay. Um, you take away LeBron's spectacular performance, and that they get their butt kicked. Like
Yeah.
if LeBron, if he's just up to par of what he's been doing this season, they lose by 20 points. So not much from the other guys. I think Russ put up 20 points.
Yeah.
So offensively, I think he had a pretty decent night. But um, yeah, they got bailed out by LeBron James, and that's what he's there for, though. So that's
Yeah.
what would expect him to do with games like this on the line. But um, man, I don't know. They looked okay down the stretch there, but if it weren't for the heroic efforts of LeBron and Carmelo hit a very clutch shot,
Yeah.
just there, right there at the end. So, um, the guys that you would expect to do things like that are doing them. Now we just have to put it together still somehow. Um, but yeah, that's kind of my overall view.
Yeah, this is going to be basically a LeBron appreciation podcast, which I think we've done a couple times already. But really, it makes sense given the context of this season. I mean, this team is not good, and there's not really much hope for what this team can accomplish. So, what you can do is take, solace in these positive moments, right? And LeBron being great at age 37 is one of that. I not a lot of reasons to turn on the TV and watch this game, watch this team for 82 games of the year, but LeBron is definitely one of them.
Mhm.
What was your favorite play? Because I was debating on what mine was. Definitely the dunk off the Malik Monk lob there at the end of the game was pretty
Mhm.
spectacular. But I believe the third three, he hits three threes there in a row in the fourth quarter, and the third one, the broadcast is talking about like heat checks almost never work, and you could tell LeBron's going to shoot a three at this
Mhm.
point, and almost on cue, LeBron nails it, and a ridiculous shot that he was completely covered. So I think that is my favorite moment because I don't. A lot of this performance was him just kind of the old LeBron days against the Warriors. Was him playing bully ball. They put him at the center. They said, "Hey, get
Mhm.
downhill against this team." which is actually kind of fitting because the last time the Lakers played the Warriors, Anthony Davis was at the center, and he was, I think this was one of his last games before his injury. And we were kind of disappointed in AD because hey, this is a small lineup, this is a small Warriors team, and AD didn't do anything. And then now you put LeBron in that same position, and you see 56 points. But to do all that and then kind of close it out with a few shots that are just ridiculous and only what we have seen kind of recently LeBron doing more of, I thought that was my favorite moment.
Yeah, anytime LeBron just stops and pulls up from, you know, 5+ feet behind the 3-point line and just knocks it down like it's nothing. I love that. I like Carmelo's probably game sealer was probably my favorite, just because I feel like there are so many instances this year where that shot has not fallen and it has essentially cost the game or been
Yeah.
just the difference in the Lakers getting back into it or something like that. But yeah, I just love that moment. It got me out of my seat in front of the TV flexing on him with Carmelo and stuff. So yeah, that was easily my favorite moment.
I'm glad you brought that up because I agree, and it was probably the biggest play of the game. And LeBron, we were talking about his scoring, right? But he's always been a pass first guy, right? So,
Mhm.
the narrative obviously is that this performance happened a couple of days after his recent episode of the shop came out, where he talks about how nobody puts him up in this all time score talk, like they're the best
Mhm.
scores in the NBA history. And LeBron's never included that. And he mentioned how he's not a big fan of that, obviously. And so it was kind of fitting that he did that a couple days later. But even in that interview, he's explaining, hey, this is not how I want to play basketball. And he's always talked about this, right? He wants to get his teammates involved. He's looking to make
Mhm.
the correct play. And so that Carmelo shot is exactly that.
Mhm.
If you read the recap for this game on the Athletic, but they talk about how he told him right before that play, hey, go sit in the strong side corner. He's going to bully down the ball. The Warriors are going to collapse, and he's going to kick out.
Mhm.
I mean, that's just classic LeBron and kind of proof of what he's been able to do throughout his career. So I want to spin this into kind of a big picture idea, right? So which is what we always try to do because I don't think we need to recap individual games completely. Um, for me, I don't know if this changes the overall outlook at all of this team, right? It is nice to know that if things completely broke the Lakers' way, right, and they were able to somehow advance this play-in game or whatever and get a series,
Mhm.
that maybe you have the best player available in that series, and LeBron has these moments in him.
Mhm.
I think LeBron is well past his days of being able to carry a mediocre team, as we kind of have seen that kind of
Yeah. Oh
unfold
yeah.
here this year. I think he's well past that, but he still has moments like these. He still has nights where he is the best player on the court,
Mhm.
and that's all you really need. And so maybe you can get into a playoff game and you get some of that, and maybe it's a competitive series, and maybe you upset someone or something like that. So if I don't know if I would count on that. Obviously, I'm not getting too optimistic about this team in general, but I think it is nice to know that this is always in the back pocket in case things kind of break the Lakers' way at any point
Mhm.
deep in the season.
Yeah, that was kind of my thought is I was like, this team without AD could go steal a win if they needed to, because
Mm-hmm.
we just saw LeBron do it. Like
Yeah.
they stole a win. That was a game that they, coming in, definitely should not have won.
Mm-hmm.
I would have predicted that they lost.
Yeah.
That's just where the team's at. So, um, but I do think it kind of showed that, you know, they can go out and get a win against a good team if they want to, if the opportunity is there. Sometimes late in the game, the opportunity is just not there. And so it's like, why put all this effort into, trying to crawl back into a game where it might not matter. But um, yeah, I felt like the game last night was kind of something like that. But I mean, outlook wise, yeah, I'm still on the fence if I think they're going to be in the playoffs, even
Mm-hmm.
in the play-in game. So,
Yeah.
um, I mean, I feel like they could at least get there. Um, I don't know if they're going into the playoffs and it doesn't look like AD is going to be back at all, then
Yeah.
it's just not going to happen.
Yeah,
But
you have no shot. Yeah.
um, I mean, if the Lakers can get in the play in and come out of there successfully and get AD back, within that first series, then maybe just
Mhm.
maybe LeBron and AD on the floor, then you have to say maybe they can do it. So,
Yeah.
um, I honestly it comes down to AD's health. I
Mhm.
mean, if he's not going to be able to um, dominate a game the way that he does, then I just don't see a realistic chance that the Lakers have. But
Yeah.
um, I mean that maybe that
Mhm.
that's kind of how I feel. Just maybe.
Yeah. All right. That's enough positivity and optimism about this dog shit team. Now let's figure out from a negative Nancy kind of view. Honestly, like last night exemplified kind of our frustration and Lakers fans' frustration with this team, right? You saw LeBron score 56 points and go off, right? But they had to, scratch and claw their way to a victory. But we have already admitted earlier in this podcast and throughout the season that, maybe LeBron is past his time of being able to carry a team completely. That's not as good. So that is why people are frustrated with kind of the roster construction and the offseason
Hmm.
decisions that went into this. And I know we've kind of mentioned to it, but I think because it's been a couple weeks since we podcast, this is a good time to kind of again talk about it and reassess here. But this is what the part that's frustrating. This is one of the last, I think, good years you're going to get of LeBron. Maybe it is the last one. I don't know. I'm never one that's going to put him down way too early. But I do think you're starting to see somewhat of a decline. And maybe that's just best player in the world to third best player in the world, whatever that decline is. But what that does mean is I think they really dropped the ball in terms of what the moves they made. And, LeBron could be guilty of it, right? We don't know
Hmm.
what his say was in this, but we can suspect that he had a say and
Yeah.
he misevaluated what Russ could bring,
Hmm.
and honestly, I did too, right? I was optimistic about Russ's fit and all that stuff. And like LeBron, I probably didn't watch many Wizards games last year. So maybe I didn't understand where Russ was at today versus, a couple of years ago. But that is the frustrating part to me because this team has been since AD is here, been built around these two stars, but you had
Hmm.
enough depth behind them. And I just felt like they freaked out because of, a couple freak injuries.
Hmm.
And they kind of just panicked and threw this roster together that, at the time people didn't think really made a whole lot of sense. And so I don't know, that to me is the frustrating part because what does this team look like if you either don't make those moves, right? Like maybe you are
Hmm.
more safely in the playoff picture, and you look at the Western Conference, and like the Suns are the clear cut team, but obviously they don't have Chris Paul right now, but like that's it. And we've talked ad nauseum about how like maybe they had a chance in last year's playoff series against the
Hmm.
Suns. So I don't know. That's the part that's frustrating to me is because these nights like this are great to see. It's the reason why I'm watching this damn team at this point, but it also just highlights the problem with everything they decided to do last summer
Hmm.
and how they've kind of like closed this almost title window team for this team. So
Yeah, I think about that all the time. What if they don't trade for Russ? What if they bring back Caruso? What even just that if they still bring Russ in, all those moves, and they still bring back Caruso and THD. Like, what do they look like even with that? But so yeah, I do feel like LeBron had a big say in this move. Um, it seems like at the trade deadline there was some people butting heads on what they should do. I honestly I'm a little relieved that they didn't make a move trading a
yeah.
2027 first round pick.
Mhm.
Um, but if they would have made a good move, I would have been okay with it. But just from the looks of it, like I play around with Lakers trades all the time, and
Yeah.
I was just like, there's nothing worth it from a pick from 5 years from now, like there's no player that they could have realistically got that would have been worth a first round pick. So I agree with them not making a move because of the price tag that they would have had to make. So um, I don't know. I look forward to the summer. It's kind of like I don't think we're gonna have much of a postseason with this
Yeah.
team. So my mind goes like, what can they do this summer? So um, I'm kind of excited. There are a lot of options, and that's nothing we have to talk about today because I could probably talk about this stuff for an hour or so. So
Yeah.
um,
Well, let's just hope we get kind of more nights like last night, right? Where it's at least interesting and gives us a reason to kind of turn on the TV and keep the game on TV
mhm,
give us a reason to talk about it afterwards as well. The Lakers do have few winnable games here that's coming this week. We've said that before, though, and usually they lose those type of games. So I'm not optimistic. Austin sure as hell isn't optimistic about this team or their chances. So let's hope that it doesn't need a LeBron superhuman effort to pull off all these wins, but maybe they can string some momentum together and have some moments of positive momentum because they're going to have a brutal stretch to end the year. And
mhm,
if you're talking about play-in tournament games, all these games start to count, especially when you're looking at kind of what this schedule is going to end out to end the regular season. So that's going to do it, I think, for this edition of the Lakers Theory podcast. LeBron is awesome. The Lakers are not, but that's okay. We've accepted it. Let's hope we get more of LeBron, what we saw last night. He's Austin Case. I'm Shane Jackson. Thank you so much for listening to the Lakers Theory podcast, and see you next time.